Hey, what's going on everybody? Jason here. Real quick, skipping the intro once again just so we can get into the meat and potatoes of today's video. This proves that Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty games moving forward are rigged. Not only is the game rigged against better players, but the game is set up in a way where they want to incentivize you to play for hours and hours a day like I covered in previous videos. This was just recently brought to my attention and I knew the moment I laid eyes on this information, the further I dug into it, I had to make a video. The information I came across are a few patents that were filed by Activision as it pertains to their multiplayer games. And we're just gonna go ahead and start at the beginning with the first patent that I saw. So the first patent's abstract says, computer implemented methods and systems for simulating a multiplayer game environment to allow players of different skill levels to concurrently play the same level of a gaming session to encourage and incentivize cooperative team behavior, to match players based on subjective variables, such as likability and general fun factor, and tailor to gaming content based on the social group itself. And so the way I interpret this long-winded abstract for this patent, this is basically a part of the skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty, where you have certain variables set in place so that multiple people can play on the same level. And when the term level is used in this patent, it's not talking about if your character is level 100 or 200, it's talking about the actual location of the actual multiplayer match. So for example, Shoot House and Shipment would be levels. So now that we have a general gist on what this patent is going to be, let's go ahead and jump into more specifics. Here in this chart on figure 3b, it details what happens on the back end of the game to set the skill-based matchmaking in place. So the first one says, degree of accuracy required to hit a target. If you are at a high skill level, you need a high level of accuracy to kill an enemy. If you're at a medium skill level, a medium amount of accuracy, and if you're at a low skill level, a low amount of accuracy. So we can see right off the bat that the game actually cheats for players that aren't very good at the game, and they don't require as much accuracy as some of the higher skilled players. So in case some of you are wondering why an opponent kills you and it doesn't look like the bullet made contact with you, or when you try to kill an enemy, the bullets don't seem to register, this is why. And that's not my interpretation of how this table works. If we take a look at section 81 of the descriptions of this patent, it says right here, for example, in a first shooter gaming environment, when a first player aims his weapon at a target, a parameter defining the tolerance for how accurate the player's aim must be to hit the target is modified based on the acquired skill level of the player. The computer assigns the tolerance for how accurate the player's aim must be to hit the target differently based on the skill level of the first player. A player having a higher skill level will be assigned a lower tolerance parameter and therefore will have to be more accurate in aiming in order to hit the target. A player having a lower skill level be assigned a higher tolerance parameter and therefore could be less accurate in aiming in order to hit the target. This is not conspiratorial, this is straight from the patent that Activision worded and filed themselves. If you are a better Call of Duty player, you are punished for being better. This also applies to the likelihood of being targeted by an enemy and in-game puzzle difficulty. So now we're spanning past the multiplayer aspect of it and we're getting into the difficulty of the puzzles in the game. Once again, in section 81 it says, similarly, the table lists other modifiable parameters such as likelihood of being targeted by enemy, where the experience of a player having a high skill level may be high degree of likelihood. The experience of a medium player having a medium skill level may be medium degree of likelihood, and the experience of a player having a low skill level may be a low degree of likelihood. Another example parameter is difficulty of an in-game puzzle, where the experience of having a high skill player may be high degree of difficulty. The experience of a player having a medium skill level may be medium degree of difficulty, and the experience of a player having a low skill level may be low degree of difficulty. And if you guys thought it didn't get any worse, it also rigs the loot that you get in Warzone. Take a look at the table again. Bonus chance of finding powerful treasure. High skill level, medium. Medium skill level, high. Low skill level, very high. And this has to apply to Warzone because in what game mode in Modern Warfare 2 do you find quote-unquote powerful treasure? But then it keeps getting worse. Once again, something that I can only imagine affects Warzone 2.0, it says right here, number of challenging enemies in a single encounter. If you are at a high skill level, you will encounter 10 to 20 enemies. If you are at a medium skill level, you will encounter 5 to 10 enemies. And if you are at a low skill level, you will encounter 1 to 5 enemies. In what game mode do you encounter enemies in large quantities? Oh, that's right, DMZ. So the game is actively scaling how many enemies are going to be in the game based off of your playstyle. It's no wonder why one of the major criticisms of DMZ is that the AI are too abundant and too powerful. The people who are actually good at the game are being punished for being good at the game. The players that aren't very good at the game are getting preferential treatment because they're at the low skill level category. And speaking of the AI, let's go ahead and take a look at figure 3C. On this table, it says accuracy of enemy attacks. If you are at a higher skill level, enemies' attacks never miss the player. But if you are at a lower skill level, enemies' attacks sometimes miss the player. What kind of bullshit is that? Then it also says accuracy of player attacks. If you're at a high skill level, player attacks need to be precise to hit the enemy. However, if you're at a lower skill level, it says player attacks have a generous leeway and do not need great precision to hit the enemy. Ladies and gentlemen, what I just covered is just one of the patents that we're going to be going over in this video, but this one all by itself proves that Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2.0 are rigged. There are going to be two more patents that I cover in this video, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. The next patent is a system and method for driving microtransactions in multiplayer video games. The abstract of this patent says it all. It says right here, a system and method is provided that drives microtransactions in multiplayer video games. The system may include a microtransaction arrange matches to influence game-related purchases. For instance, the system may match a more expert/marquee player with a junior player to encourage the junior player to make game-related purchases of items possessed/used by the marquee player. A junior player may wish to emulate the marquee player by obtaining weapons or other items used by the marquee player. So essentially, if you are a player that buys a shitload of microtransactions, you are going to be put into lobbies with players that don't buy as many microtransactions. In the eyes of Activision, this is going to try to incentivize what they call the junior player to spend more money in the game, because Activision believes if the junior player sees an expert player using a 3,000 COD point bundle, they're going to be influenced to buy the bundle. And here, taking a look at this flowchart in figure 7, this is how the system processes this particular function. 702, obtain availability of first player. 704, identify gameplay session that may be relevant for first player. 706, make soft reservation for first player to join the gameplay session. 708, obtain availability of second player who may be a good match with the first player. 710, make soft reservation for the second player to join the gameplay session. 712, both players available? If yes, 716, invite players to join the game session. If no, 714, provide interim gameplay to an available player. So essentially what this flowchart is saying is that each of these players are going to have a reservation in the lobby. These lobbies are predetermined based on how many bundles a player has or doesn't have. So for those of you who think the matchmaking is random, it really isn't. The system is rigged for Activision to try and incentivize players to buy more things in the game. And finally, the third patent we're going to cover in this video kind of piggybacks on the first patent we covered today, but I think this one is still pretty relevant. This patent describes systems and methods for controlling camera perspectives, movements, and displays of video game gameplay. The abstract says, in a multiplayer video game, virtual cameras are controlled by continually assessing and ranking storylines relating to the interactions of various players during a game session. A ranking for each storyline may be based on various factors, such as, but not limited to, what the players can see, the distance between certain players, nearby game items, or in-game. Subsequently, at least one virtual camera is navigated to provide a view of the highest ranking storyline, subject to certain limitations on how the camera can move, transition, or otherwise display the interactions between players. To further elaborate on the vocabulary used here in this abstract, in sections 39 and 40 of the description of the patent, it says right here, the term virtual camera or camera refers to at least one viewing element configured to capture or provide a view of gameplay in a virtual world associated with a video game. It should be appreciated that akin to a physical camera, the at least one virtual camera may have associated position coordinates to uniquely identify its location within a gaming world. Also, in various embodiments, a virtual camera may be characterized by a plurality of customizable parameters such as, but not limited to, orientation, viewing angle, focal length, zoom factor, tilt, and pan. Then in section 40, it defines what a storyline is. The term storyline is defined as an aggregated set of data defining a player's visual and auditory in-game interactions, for example with one or more players. Storyline data may refer to all or a portion of the programmatic data defining the visual storyline, auditory storyline, and associated metadata pertaining or incidental thereto, which, if processed and rendered, would visually and orally display the storyline to one or more human spectators. Storyline data may be indicative of one or more preferred positions, angles, foci, fields of view, or perspectives of one or more cameras. So now that we have these technical definitions, let's go ahead and take a look at this flowchart. This flowchart tells us that the system determines if the game needs needs to be manipulated to fit a certain storyline. 305. Receive or access overall ranking for a plurality of storylines in a game match. 310. Determine if a virtual camera should be navigated, positioned, and/or oriented to capture a storyline determined to have a highest overall ranking amongst the plurality of storylines, subject to a plurality of limiting factors. 315. Navigate, position, and/or orient the virtual camera to capture visual data of a storyline determined to have a highest overall ranking amongst the plurality of storylines, subject to a plurality of camera navigation rules. So essentially, the game can manipulate at will the virtual camera, which is your perspective of the video game, to fit a storyline. This also applies to the audio cues in the game, and the audio can be manipulated to fit a certain storyline. So, if the game system determines that the storyline for the lower skilled player takes precedent over the storyline of the higher skilled player in the plurality of storylines, the game system will manipulate the match to fit a certain storyline. This is why you've had so many people speculate if there is skill-based hit registration and skill-based audio in Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2.0. The game on the back end is actively trying to fit a particular storyline. And so if you combine this patent with the first patent that we covered in this video, it all starts to make more sense. Well, there you have it, everybody. Those are the patents that Activision have filed for their multiplayer games. Now, I'm sure some of you are questioning, why go through all the trouble? What's the point of all of this crap? Well, it's like I said in previous videos, Activision doesn't care about the hardcore player anymore. All they want to do is incentivize the casual and the modern consumer to spend hours on end playing the game and buying microtransactions. As we can see from the patents, if you're not a very good player, the skill level is going to be significantly decreased, which means for a lot of players out there, they're going to be enticed to play the game for longer periods of time because they're going to have more fun. And in turn, if the player keeps playing for long periods of time, they get exposed to all of the microtransactions and all the bundles in the store. So there's more of a chance for one of those players to buy a 3,000 COD point bundle. And in addition, in order for them to keep having fun with the bundles that they just bought, the game is rigged in gunfights so that those players keep having fun. All the while, the skilled Call of Duty player gets shafted because Activision wants to create a safe space for players. And as we can see, modern Call of Duty is rigged against you. Activision could not care less at this current moment about the hardcore player. They want those players replaced with obedient consumers that will play and buy everything in the game, regardless if the content is worthwhile or not, because these people are just going to consume for the sake of consuming. Thus is the modern consumer, stuck in a cycle of consuming without really thinking about it. And you see this constantly in entertainment nowadays. Shows, movies, video games being made for the sake of making them, and people just consume them without thinking about it. Which is part of the reason, in my opinion, why they're doing so many crossovers now for their modern Call of Duty games. All of the modern entertainment exists for one reason: to keep you hooked. And if they can keep you hooked for long periods of time and you keep spending your money and you revolve your entire identity around their product, they win. So like I've said in previous videos, I implore you all to put down the modern Call of Duty games and do something else. Even if that something else is playing a different video game that resonates with you, instead of playing a game that's basically just a grinding simulator. But it is much more important to make healthier decisions, and part of those healthier decisions is keeping an eye on the content that comes your way, because not all content is good content, contrary to what the modern companies would like you to believe. The mindset of any content is what got us here in the first place. And so for all of you out there who are stuck in the endless content cycle, break the cycle. I know I've already said that, but my message still stands firm. Break the cycle. But what do you guys think about these patents from Activision, and what do you think about modern Call of Duty now? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Anyways guys, that's it for this video, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe if you're a brand new viewer. And with that said, have a fantastic rest of your day or night, depending on where you are in this crazy world, and I'll see you guys next time.